Coming up on the Nexus, Donald Trump, the peacemaker.
I solved 8 wars. And every time I solve one, they say, if you solve the next one, you're going to get the Nobel Prize. I didn't get a Nobel Prize.
We'll be looking at the evidence for and against the president. Hello and welcome to the Nexus. I'm Matthew Moore. Donald Trump claims that he's stopped 8 wars while in office, pointing to peace deals and ceasefires across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. Now, many people scoff, but others say he's absolutely right.
Success has many fathers. It's okay if Mr. Trump is the major one of them.
Trump energized their peace process and gave them a big push.
He's a populist leader. Facts and numbers doesn't really matter for Trump.
Well, that's coming up. But first, here's a quick look at the wars he says he's ended.
I solved 8 wars. 8 wars.
The wars Donald Trump says he's brought to an end are spread across the world. Here's a closer look at his peacemaking claims. Egypt and Ethiopia. Trump stepped in to stop fighting over Ethiopia's Nile Dam. When talks collapsed, the US froze aid to Ethiopia, but later he posted that his efforts had brought peace, at least for now. President al-Sisi of Egypt posted online that he appreciated Trump's intervention. India and Pakistan. They fought over Kashmir since 1947, but a terrorist attack on tourists saw India accuse Pakistan of supporting the attackers and launched military strikes against Pakistan, who then responded. Trump claimed a ceasefire was agreed after talks mediated by the US. India denied the US was ever involved. Pakistan offered its appreciation.
And today, again, I would like to nominate this great president for Nobel Peace Prize.
Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Conflict began when the rebel group M23, which is reportedly backed by Rwanda, started seizing mineral-rich areas in the DRC in 2021. At the White House, with Trump in June, both countries' foreign ministers met to promise a ceasefire agreed in 2024 would be honoured, although M23 attacks are still apparently happening.
We believe that with your leadership, with the involvement of the United States administration, we will reach that goal. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
So again, our heartfelt gratitude to you on my behalf, but more importantly, on behalf of the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Thank you so much.
Israel and Iran. The 12-day war erupted when Israel launched airstrikes on Iranian military sites. Iran fired back, then the US got involved, striking Iran's nuclear facilities, but Trump did broker a ceasefire that has largely held. Later, Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu wrote a letter nominating Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, presenting it to him at the White House. Serbia and Kosovo. Since Kosovo declared independence in 2008, Serbia has refused to recognise it. There's been no obvious war, but Trump said this.
Serbia, Kosovo is going to go at it, going to be a big war. I said, you go at it, there's no trade with the United States. They said, well, maybe we won't go at it.
It was his personal role and engagement that prevented that, which is a true leadership in preserving peace.
Thailand and Cambodia. Relations between the two deteriorated in May after a confrontation along the border that killed a Cambodian soldier. Heavy fighting followed, killing dozens and displacing thousands. Malaysia hosted the peace talks, but Trump said it was his threats to withdraw from tariff negotiations with both sides that led to a truce being signed in August.
I also wish to express my sincere appreciation to President Donald J. Trump for your personal dedication to peace between our two countries.
I have nominated President Donald J. Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Armenia and Azerbaijan. The two have been in conflict for nearly 40 years, but serious fighting broke out in 2023 over the Karabakh region. When a peace deal was agreed, it was signed at the White House, with Trump taking the credit.
I think President Trump deserved to have a Nobel Peace Prize.
So who, if not President Trump, deserves the Nobel Peace Prize? President Trump in 6 months did a miracle.
Israel and Hamas. On October 7, 2023, members of Hamas launched rockets into southern Israel in response to the ongoing Israeli blockade of Gaza and escalating violence in the region. In the following 2 years, Israel's response killed at least 67,000 Palestinians. Last month, Trump unveiled a 20-point plan for an immediate ceasefire. It took effect on October 10th, but serious violations still occur almost daily.
So to the best of my knowledge, we've never had a president that solved one war. A lot of them start wars, but they don't solve the wars.
Well, let's bring in the first of our guests now. We'll start in the Middle East, and we have Jamal Nazzal. He is a spokesman for the Palestinian political party, Fatah. Welcome back to the program, Jamal. I'd like to start by asking you how you feel about Donald Trump claiming credit for the Gaza ceasefire.
I'm okay with that. What matters is that the bloodshed will stop, the forcible displacement of our people, the starvation of the people, the mass killing, the mass murder by the Israeli army will stop. This matters more for me than whose father success, how many fathers success had. As we know, success has many fathers. It's okay if Mr. Trump is the major one of them. That's okay. What we wish for him is to continue to go on with this, pressuring Israel to respect the ceasefire so that the bloodshed will really end.
Success has many fathers and failure is an orphan, right? Would it have happened without him?
We all know that he has really put pressure on Israel to stop the war. We know that Netanyahu was reluctant to accepting this plan. He tried to modify it. He tried to maneuver himself out of it, and he was put under pressure by Mr. Trump. So I think we can fairly give Mr. Trump credit for what he did. Also, we have to give credit to all the regional leaders who supported the plan, including the Muslim and Arab leaders who participated in it. Some of them had their signature on it. They also deserve credit for that.
Yes, we saw them all at Sharm el-Sheikh, didn't we? And at least in the public view, they all seem to support him, to commend him, and to have actually quite warm relationships with him. What's it like behind closed doors, Trump's relationship with regional leaders?
Oh, this is very hard to tell. I can tell from our experience within the Palestinian context, when Arafat visited Clinton in the White House 15 times, he had a special relationship with him. And you saw the chemistry between Mr. President Abbas and President Trump. They had a very long small talk, if you will. I believe he's a nice person to talk to. I never met him personally. I cannot judge how it is to deal with him.
Okay.
Let this be the field of others to judge.
Okay, I'll move on to a less tricky question. The president talks about ending the war and hoping for eternal peace. I would say that's quite hyperbolic, but quite typically so. However, do you share his optimism?
Well, I do not feel ashamed to share the optimism with anyone, but it really takes more than a ceasefire to restore peace and end the war. For a war to be ended, this is a 100 years conflict. You don't end it with a ceasefire. We've had so many ceasefires in the past. I remember the second Intifada. We had many ceasefires. At the end, we had to get out of the whole thing. But what we need to end the war is to have a just and lasting peace, a just and lasting solution based on creating an independent Palestinian state within the borders of 1967. Without the Palestinian people having their right to self-determination, we cannot really talk about ending a war or ending a conflict.
Well, Jamal, we have to skip on to some other regions around the world now. But before I do, a final, last and brief question. We're asking everyone. President Obama was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize just 9 months into his term. Is Trump more deserving than Obama of the Nobel Peace Prize?
I think if Mr. Trump manages to really end the Arab-Israeli conflict by creating a Palestinian state and ending the suffering of the Palestinians, we ourselves would be advocating for him to get this.
Jamal Nazzal, thank you so much for your contributions today. Really appreciate that. And coming up on the program, Trump says he's ended 8 wars, but is he about to start a new one with Venezuela? We'll be taking a look at the latest moves against Nicolas Maduro.
Are we going to war against Venezuela?
I doubt it. I don't think so.
Are Maduro's days as president numbered?
I would say yeah. I think so, yeah.
Right, have a quick look at this graph now. And along the bottom axis, we have the credibility of Trump's claim for each conflict. So, in the case of Israel and Gaza, his claim is highly credible because it's supported by leaders in the region. And that's true also of Azerbaijan and Armenia. Leaders from Thailand and Cambodia also gave official acknowledgement. But as you go up the graph, his claims become less credible. So in the case of India-Pakistan, only the Pakistanis acknowledged Trump's role in stopping the conflict. Just a note on the graph of credibility. It was generated by AI and is not official in any way. It's just for illustrative purposes. Okay, let's bring in our next guest, Matthew Bryza. He's a former US ambassador to Azerbaijan. Welcome, Matthew. Let's start with how important was President Trump in stopping the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan?
Your straightforward question is a little more complicated than it might first believe, because the conflict isn't resolved. What happened on August 8th was that President Trump oversaw the signing of a joint statement, joint declaration by President Aliyev of Azerbaijan, Prime Minister Pashinyan of Armenia, in which they pledged to finalize a peace treaty and recognize each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity and open a new transit link. But the peace treaty is not signed. It was initialed with President Trump overseeing it. And to get to that finalization, to get to the peace treaty being signed and being real, Azerbaijan is demanding that Armenia amends its constitution to make it absolutely unambiguously clear that Armenia has no further territorial claims on Azerbaijan. That's going to be a difficult thing to achieve in Armenia politically, but the Armenian prime minister is committed to doing so. So President Trump doesn't have a role to play in that. But what President Trump did do was indeed significant, as both Aliyev and Pashinyan have recognized. By convening them, President Trump energized their peace process and gave them a big push in the direction of that peace treaty, its finalization.
And Matthew, it seemed like he was pulling all the economic levers. Were they the main tools?
I think it's a combination of diplomatic forcefulness and, yes, an economic levers. So unlike in my experience as a U.S. mediator, I was the U.S. mediator of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict for several years, together with Russian and French counterparts. Trump is, as I said, forceful, and he's willing to push people and heads of state out of their comfort zones. And so that's where the diplomatic forcefulness comes in. When he does that, though, it actually provides political cover for those leaders to persuade their national electorates that, well, they didn't have any choice because President Trump put so much pressure on them. On the economic side, yeah, President Trump, in the case of Azerbaijan, used that corridor I mentioned and the participation by U.S. companies. It's not clear if they'll be investors or logistics services providers, but U.S. companies will be there on the ground. And from Trump's perspective, and I think from the perspectives of the leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia, that U.S. investment and business presence serves as sort of a stabilizing force and a security guarantee, as was intended with the critical minerals deal that President Trump concluded with President Zelensky of Ukraine.
So he seems to have quite a strong claim when he talks about Armenia and Azerbaijan. What about the Balkans, where you also have deep experience? The tensions between Kosovo and Serbia. What did he do back in 2020? Was it significant?
It ended up not being significant. I mean, at the time, we were all observing breathlessly at how the leaders in both countries were trying to come up with a way to normalize their relations, but they haven't. And subsequently, there's been serious tension. So that conflict continues. But similarly in Azerbaijan, Armenia, again, the underlying conflict is still there. But Trump really did push them, I think, much more substantially than he was able to do with Kosovo and Serbia.
Fair enough. And just a final question we're asking all of our participants. If Barack Obama can be awarded the Peace Prize 9 months into his presidency, is Donald Trump a more qualified claimant?
As a person who was nominated by Barack Obama to be ambassador to Azerbaijan, I'm comfortable saying yes. I think President Obama himself was very open in saying, he hadn't done anything to deserve the Nobel Peace Prize at that time, right in the beginning of his administration. But Trump has done some things, as we've just been discussing. And there were, a lot of contenders for the Nobel Peace Prize. But I have to say, during my years as the U.S. mediator, my Russian and French counterparts and I, along with our organization, were nominated by some people for a Nobel Peace Prize. So, if we were nominated, certainly President Trump, who pushed the process along even further, merits at least a nomination.
Matthew Bryza, thank you so much for your contributions today. Really appreciate that. Well, coming up in the program, persona non grata. We'll hear from the South African ambassador Trump kicked out of Washington. Well, Trump wasn't awarded the Nobel Peace Prize this year. Instead, that honor was given to Venezuelan opposition figure Maria Corina Machado, who actually dedicated her prize to Trump. Here's a quick biography of her.
Maria Corina Machado took the call from the Nobel Committee in hiding, where she's been since the 2023 opposition primary she won was cancelled. Venezuela's self-styled Iron Lady was honoured for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela. She's been in politics since 2002, pushing for fair elections and peaceful change. The Nobel Award left Machado speechless.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, I have no words.
And left Donald Trump disappointed.
Did I get a Nobel Prize? No. Can you believe it?
But Machado has been closely allied with the Trump administration for months. She even dedicated her Nobel to him.
I absolutely think he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize.
It's been reported that her team has shared intel with Trump on Maduro and the crime gangs in the country and backed his unwavering military stance towards Venezuela's government. Now US forces are edging closer. The USS General R. Ford, America's largest aircraft carrier, is heading to the Caribbean, joining a growing US naval presence. Since September, US forces have launched at least 14 strikes on alleged drug boats, killing around 60 people.
Well, for more on Trump and Machado and events around Venezuela, I'm joined by Javier Farje, an international affairs analyst who specializes in Latin America. Javier, welcome back to the program. I want to ask you, what is behind this closeness with Trump?
It is regime change. Machado has made it very clear that she's after regime change. She, a Nobel Peace Prize, who was supposed to have been given the prize because of her peaceful campaign for democracy, is asking for the escalation, military escalation, quote unquote. Now, Reuters reports that there's been meetings between Machado from her hideout in Caracas and the Trump administration to discuss these issues. Not only that, Machado recently has started to use the same kind of rhetoric that Trump uses in terms of accusing Maduro of being a member of a drug cartel without any evidence whatsoever that this is the case. So regardless of what you think about whether Maduro won the election or not, we are talking about the possibility of a direct intervention. Also, Trump announced the start of covert operations in Venezuela, which was a bit absurd because covert operations are known for being secret. He announced that. So there's a campaign of intimidation, and Machado's rhetoric has changed in the last few weeks to be more aggressive, to be more hostile towards the government of Venezuela. So yes, there's been the conversation between, according to Reuters, between Machado and the people from the Trump administration. So it is regime change, no question about that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he was asked if the CIA are operating in Venezuela, and he said that they were. And then they went on to ask him, do you think his days are numbered? And he says, yes, I think so. But what are the actual odds here that Trump will go for that, given the history of attempted regime change in Latin America, which has been a bit of a disaster?
Well, an invasion of a sovereign country in Latin America would be very, very counterproductive because Latin America would not like that. Even critics of Maduro, President Gustavo Petro of Colombia, who doesn't recognize the Maduro government, has said Latin America has to be unified to oppose this kind of invasion. So the likelihood of a direct invasion, according to some analysts, is very low. But what they are trying to do is trying to intimidate Maduro to try to leave power, which is something he's actually not going to do.
And of all the opposition politicians, if it did happen, is it most likely that Machado would be installed?
Well, Machado didn't win the election. Menendez won the election, so she would be installed, but many people would be unhappy in the opposition. Whether she would be installed as president or not, that would be a very undemocratic. Because if she's fighting for a democratic transition towards in Venezuela, how can she be installed without being elected?
Right.
So
fair
it would
point.
be very tricky.
And just a final question, Farje. Some of our analysts today have said or suggested that if Barack Obama can be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize 9 months into his presidency, Donald Trump is a more worthy recipient. I just wonder if, given the action around Venezuela's waters, if you think that would disqualify Trump from being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, the Norwegian Peace Council, which organizes a torchlight procession in honor of the Nobel Peace Prize every year since 1954, has decided not to do that this year for Machado, because they totally disagree, because they believe that goes against the spirit of the Nobel Prize, which is peaceful negotiation, peaceful attitudes. That would disqualify, if it disqualifies Machado for that, if many people are critical of the decision by the Nobel Prize Committee of granting her the Nobel Peace Prize, it will be even less likely that Trump will get it.
Javier Farje, thank you so much for your analysis today. Really appreciate that. Well, clearly, Javier is quite sceptical, but what about the people on the streets of London? We have to find out their opinion. Let's have a listen.
He wants to be a peacemaker, but whether he has the capability to actually do it, I'm not quite sure.
He's created quite a lot of wars within the world, like maybe not actual physical wars, but in terms of like conflict and conflicting opinions and driving people apart.
It comes across like he could be, but I don't know.
Do you think he deserved the Nobel Peace Prize? Or?
No, I don't.
Like there is a war in Pakistan and India, there is a war between the Palestine and the Israel, all the things gone the other direction. So I don't think so that Trump has any character in bringing the peace to the world.
So he wants to make Ukraine and Russia number 9, does he? He said he could do that within a week. I don't see anything like that getting any closer.
I think he definitely brought some changes, but with the wrong measures for my likings.
Whilst he's been in power, people have stopped dying in the scale that they have, then of course that's a good thing.
Well, quite a lot of scepticism on the streets of London and amongst professional diplomats too. EBRAHIM RASOOL was removed as South Africa's ambassador to the United States after accusing the Trump administration of white supremacy. Of course, that was after the president suggested that South Africa's white minority were being unfairly targeted. We caught up with RASOOL at the TRT World Forum in Istanbul, and he told us there's a difference between stopping the guns and genuine peace.
There is a fundamental difference between creating peace and maybe stopping conflict, because none of them have an element of justice about it. The issues underlying it remain unresolved. And so the big debate we had as South Africa with Trump was, do you stop the Ukrainian war at the status quo ante, as it was in 2014, or as the status quo as is? Russia keeps what it wants. The same with Israel and Palestine, the same all over the Kashmiri issue, that India, Pakistan. So my immediate take is that there is no peace, but the guns may have fallen silent, and not even sustainably so if you look at Palestine. And so it's all the kind of performative approach to getting a Nobel Prize, which didn't happen, because I think the criteria are just so strong. There must be peace, there must be justice.
Okay, let's bring in our final guest now, and Enes Bayraklı is a professor of political science at the Turkish-German University. Enes, welcome to the program. We've heard from lots of people from different regions today, and I just want to tie all these loose ends together with you. Broad question then, how do you rate Trump's claims to have ended 8 wars?
Well, definitely he ended some wars, but I think the numbers doesn't really matter for Trump. He being a populist leader, politician, so facts and numbers doesn't really matter for Trump. He's not really targeting or trying to target the rationality of his audience, rather their emotions. So that's why he's using this rhetoric, big numbers, big claims, and for a politician like Trump, I think the numbers really doesn't matter. That's why I think he's using this rhetoric.
What about his public image amongst leaders in the Middle East region, for example? We saw him at Sharm el-Sheikh. He seemed to have warm relations with everyone, very cordial. What do leaders in the region think about him behind closed doors?
Well, not only the leaders, but the whole world, the whole globe thinks that he's a very unusual leader, unconventional, his style. And his style is not something that we have seen, anywhere in the world, especially a country like the United States, that's the hegemonic power in the international system. So there has never been a president like Trump before. So he's an interesting character for everybody. I can say this.
Well, probably the crown jewel in his achievements so far has been the Gaza ceasefire. Some describe that, though, as shaky. What do you think about his 20-point peace plan? Do you have confidence in that?
Well, I think Trump has a genuine stake and interest and motivation to continue this ceasefire. And he's, I think, putting pressure on Israel and also other actors in the region, but also Hamas, to sustain this ceasefire agreement in Gaza. So I think despite many hurdles and risks, I think this ceasefire will hold.
Well, a final question for you, Enes. We're asking all our guests. Barack Obama was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize 9 months into his presidency. Do you think that Donald Trump is a more worthy recipient?
Well, this is a question, I mean, it's really difficult to answer. He definitely ended the Gaza war with a ceasefire, and maybe also Israel war, 12-day war. But I think he also initiated this war, or he gave the green light to Netanyahu. This is something also Trump is using to address his own voters in the United States, that he didn't get this Nobel Peace Prize. This decision he is using also to prove to his voters that he is somehow being treated badly by liberals, because this Nobel Peace Prize is also somehow is a symbol of liberal, world order and liberal principles.
Enes Bayraklı, thank you so much for your contributions today. Really appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you at home and on your phones for watching. Until next week then, goodbye.